If you're an average person, then July probably means summer's here. It's a hot season, it's gonna get hot and sweaty. But if you're a Vanguard player, July means only one thing. New starter product, baby! There's so much stuff here I don't even have space, but we are here with a brand new starter decks for Vanguard, which of course have just released here in Japan, which are, I'll just show them one at a time because they take up too much space. Of course, first and foremost, Graham Grace, which is for Keter Sanctuary, as you can see, which features, of course, Ichidoji Yuki's deck from the Vanguard Deer Days game. So it's really cool that they're kind of marketing for specifically people that started Vanguard with Deer Days to get into the game here with these decks. So this is one of them. The second one is for Dark States with Feverneal, and so it also of course includes a full pre-constructed deck, as well as all of this other stuff that we'll take a look at in a second. And then the third one is of course not related to Deer Days, it is Orphist Regis. So of course the current kind of antagonist of the present anime arc is gonna be Zaxa with Orphist, and so you get an easy way to get your Orphist merch through this starter deck. So let's take a look at them because these are actually insanely good starter products. Here in Japan, I think their MSRP was supposed to be about like 4,400 yen, but most stores sell them for about 3,600, so it's about $30. And so they're amazing starter products. I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to put them just here on the side. We're going to go in order of like their releases. So the first one we're going to look at is the Graham Grace one. I really like the art that we have on the front as well, with Ichidoji Yuki here, of course, on the front, you know, on the box itself. And so the packaging is actually, you know, the boxes are relatively big. I can maybe give you a deck box size comparison. So here's a Chronojet deck box. They're about, you know, if I put them side by side, you can sort of see that it's relatively big overall. You know, again here it's like relatively big, but you basically get this like nice storage box, and then you remove this little protective film which basically uncovers the actual full thing. So you see, you get basically you get just Yuki's legs on the bottom for some reason, but you get a full art spread of Graham Grace. On the side you have just Yuki here, which looks very nice, and then here of course just the Vanguard logo and Graham Grace full art on the side. On the other side, and on the back is just like a pale design sort of thing. And then you open it up and you have quite a lot of stuff in here. So first things first, that really stands out, of course, aside from the deck, is the fact that you get a full set of like merch. So this isn't just a deck. Taking this out is a little bit hard, but you get a deck box and you also get a pack of sleeves. And if I take out all the separators, you can basically see that on top of that you have this little storage box. So I actually use these a lot for actual decks. So I usually put my decks when I go to locals into these. So really recommend, they're just good overall. But you can see here is the Graham Grace deck box in full, you know, detail. You have Yuki here on the back and on the side, and then this one's kind of like empty, of course, like the Jet ones. So this is just like the same ones you would get in the Jet Stride deck set. It says Keter Sanctuary on the top, and then of course Vanguard Deer Days on the bottom. Wow, it's actually really cool. So really nice, you know, just another deck box for your collection. And the sleeves as well, I believe that you get should be like 54 of them, I suppose, so it'd be like just a bit over for the main deck. So they are, of course, the beautiful, nice, usual foil design that you expect from Vanguard sleeves. And then there's a deck. So this is, of course, what you actually challenge battles with. The deck is unfortunately non-foil, so a lot of the cost of this is of course consumed by the extra merch you get, so like the storage box as well as the sleeves and whatnot. So I'm just going to zoom in here so you see the full detail. So we have Graham Grace here, of course, in non-foil. So we do get 4 copies of Graham Grace for your Persona Ride. If you don't know what Graham Grace does, you know, if you haven't played Deer Days, I suppose. Basically, when you Persona Ride, your back row units also get the power from Persona Ride. And once per turn, you can combo one Soul Blast 1 to draw 1 and call a card from hand to your middle back row rearguard circle, so the one behind the Vanguard. And then that unit can attack from the back row and gets plus 10k power. And when your rearguard attacks from behind the Vanguard, at the end of the battle, it goes to Soul and you draw 1. So basically, the whole gimmick of Graham Grace is you power up your back row, and you also are able to get a 4th attack through one of your back rows being able to attack. So that's very nice to get 4 copies. And then this is the Graham Grace ride line. So we have this Divine Sister, so she's the Gateau Busk. So her effect is when you would ride from the ride deck, instead of discarding 1, you can Soul Blast 1. So this is specifically when you would go into Graham Grace. You can basically not have to discard, and you instead just like get to Soul Blast 1 instead. So that's the grade 2. The grade 1 of the ride deck says when it is ridden over, you draw 1 and then choose one card from hand, discard it. So not that great. It's like a filter, I suppose. And then the new starter is this little witch. So it's the usual effects of the starters, but the art is really nice. So it's cool that we get that. So that is the Graham Grace ride line. And then they reprinted some of the promos that support these decks. So this is the Graham Grace promo that says when it attacks from the middle back row rearguard circle at the end of the battle, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, you Soul Blast 1. Oh, sorry, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Soul Boss 1, discard 1, and if you have a Graham Grace Vanguard, give it plus 10k power and plus 1 drive. So it's like the optimal target to call behind Graham Grace from his own effect, so it's very, very nice. And we get 2 copies of him. You might want to pick up 2 more. I think that's like my only complaint is that I wish they gave you a full playset, but you get 2 Fasados, so he got reprinted. He is, of course, he has resist, so he cannot be targeted by effects. And of course, he can also, when he hits anything, countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. So we get 2/2 split of them for the grade 3 slots of the deck. And then this is the exclusive that you get only from this product. So this is the Davun. So he says, it's a grade 2 with 10k power. And he says, when your middle back row grade 3 or greater unit attacks, if you have a Graham Grace Vanguard, then for that battle, that attacking unit gets plus 5k. So it buffs up the thing that attacks. And in the front row, when he attacks, if you have a Graham Grace Vanguard, if this turn your middle row or middle column units have attacked 2 or more times this turn, you can count almost when he gets plus 15k power. So he's like a really powerful attacker on his own, and he also buffs up the side too. So definitely quite nice for an exclusive. And then we have 2 copies of Cadwalla reprinted, so this was only available in the Youthberg trial deck before as a bonus card. Then we have 2 copies of the Landesha, oh no, 4 copies actually, so that's another reprint, so this was a rare in set 8. Then we have Drilling Angel, 4 copies actually, so this is another card that a lot of people use in their Keter decks, so definitely a nice reprint to have. And then this is also, I think also from set 8, this is a card that says if your one's Vanguard's grade 3, it gets plus 5k power, so 3 copies of her, and 2 copies of the Painkiller Angels. This is double rare from set 1, which I don't think has been reprinted in Japanese ever since then, so pretty thankful, and of course it is uncommon, so pretty easy to assemble here. Then we have 4 copies of the Effect Perfect Art, so it's really nice that they stopped doing those like non-effect Perfect Arts. These are the effect ones, so you know, you buy the start deck, you get 4 Keter PGs, which is very nice, and it is the new art too, which I like a lot. Common Keter over trigger, so of course first time we see one of these. And then we have 4 of this critical, 4 of this critical, 8 crit, very nice. And then unfortunately not effect triggers. I wish this was effect draws, that would be really nice. And then 4 heal triggers, these are the ones from set 6 I want to say. And then we have 5 bonus cards, and these bonus cards, honestly they're worth more than like the value of the whole box. Like it's actually crazy good value. So this one says, when it's boosted at the end of the battle, if your damage is 3 or, sorry, if your face-on damage is 3 or more, then you can put it to soul to countercharge 1. So this is a countercharger, which is used in certain decks like Azel. Then we have the Karubure. So this was a triple rare from set 7, so actually pretty fast to get reprinted. So this is very nice. It is of course in common, but a really good reprint. Then we have the Wayward Therapy Angel, who's used in Youthberg, which is another reprint from set 7, which is very nice to see. And we have one of the promos for Graham Grace also reprinted. So this one says, in the back row rearguard circle, during your turn, during the end of your turn, if you have a Graham Grace Vanguard, you can retire this card to choose a grade 3 unit card from your soul and add it to your hand. So you can recycle your Persona rights, or you can recycle your, like, the attacker, for example, that you put to soul and stuff like that. And the final bonus card is the Holy Grail, as we call it. So it's a Regulus piece, which means you can only have 1 of these cards with this icon in your deck, and you can only play it once per game. So it says if you have a grade 3 with a Persona right icon, that is your Vanguard, and if you haven't ridden yet this turn, then you can play this to activate Persona right for the turn. So basically it's another copy of Persona right in your deck, and this is a really long awaited reprint and a very good one at that. So that's the contents of the Graham Grace deck. Overall, I think it's, of the 3, the weakest one, but if you want to get into Keter Sanctuary, it is a great way to get started. But let's move on to Dock States and take a look at the one for Favernil. So let me zoom out a little bit as we actually open up the product itself. So looks really cool. Favernil is of course the boss unit that technically does not allow you to Persona ride, because it is kind of like a one-of-a-kind card. That was the boss unit in Deer Days. And of course, if you played Deer Days, you know, story to the very end, you were able to experience that entire journey as well and know what this deck does. So we're gonna open it up, and here you can see the bottom. You can see his legs as well as Favernil's bottom. And then here we have a close-up, as well as a blank on the side, and then of course Favernil on the side here as well. Favernil's art itself is really cool. I think it's drawn by Night Rose's artist, if I'm not mistaken. So of course you can have, you know, you already have, in Japan we have a foil version of Favernil, but I guess English will never have one, unless they somehow print it later down the line. So let me take out the deck first so we can show you the sleeves. All right, so just gonna unbox the whole thing, take everything out, get rid of like the protective stuff in here. All right, so now the box is empty. We can move it aside. So first, here is the actual bonus merch. So you have the deck box, which just looks really, really nice. And of course you have the, was he Shoji? I actually forget the villain's name, but we have the Deer Days logo here on the back as well. So very, very nice. Favernil looking super cool, and the Dark Days logo up top. So it's actually, is it the same one as the Jet one? Oh no, the Jet one had the Stride Deckset written on it, so it's a little bit different. So that's the deck box, and then the sleeves are really cool because they're actually foil So you can kind of see like the rainbow in the back. It's like kind of shiny and stuff. So looks really cool. These are actually very clean. I might want to use these just for like ride deck sleeves for certain decks, just because like they pop really hard. And it's actually like the design you see on the card itself is like, he's a really cool dragon. So I like these kind of dragon designs. They're pretty sick. But now let's take a look at the actual deck in action and take a look at the details. So we open it up, and of course the bonus cards are pretty exciting in this one because there's some huge reprints too. So let's take a look. All right. Okay, might be zoomed in a little bit too much. So first things first, we have Faverniel itself. So this one we only get one copy of, by the way, because he does say a Faverniel can only be played one in a deck. So you can only have one per deck. But at the beginning of the main phase, you choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it. And this turn, if you have not ridden, for that turn, he gets plus 10k power and a crit. And when your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, you can put one card from hand to soul to draw a card. So it doesn't, it doesn't plus, but it breaks even while filling up your soul. And then once per turn, at the end of the battle that he attacked, if the total grades of the Dark States cards in your soul are 13 or more, you can counterblast 2 to stand him and he loses a drive. So he's 23k plus 1 crit, basically cycles through cards every turn, retires your opponent's stuff every turn, and is also restanding Vanguard. Of course, the CP2 is a bit expensive, but it is very cool. The ride lane is the exact same as Graham Grace, by the way, so it's like the, you soul boss one instead of discarding for the ride deck. This is the one that lets you draw one and ditch one. Sadly doesn't put it to soul. And then of course, this is the starter. So this is the Clock Hands Draco Kid. So pretty nice, maybe like, could be cool for like, I guess you can't use in Gear Chronicle, you have to use Chrono Dragon, so a little bit unfortunate. So then we do have some reprints. So Zerimoto is, I think, a common from an older set, so we have 4 copies of him. He lets you CB1 and put him to soul to like a top 2 and then put 1 into your soul and then call 1. And then this is a promo, so this is the Vorpal Scythe Dragon. So you can soul blast 2 to retire an opponent's rearguard, which activates Faverniel's effect. And then if you hit with him, he soul charges 2, so we get 4 copies of him. Then we have the Time Gyrate Dragon. When he's placed on rear, you put a card from hand to soul to draw 1, so helps with the win condition. And then we have the original card, the support card here, and this one's really good. So Frodies says when he, at the end of the battle that he attacked, if you have a Faverniel Vanguard, you put him to soul and retire an opponent's rearguard. So that immediately lets you also use that auto skill to put a card from hand to soul and draw 1. And then in the soul, at the beginning of the ride phase, very important, beginning of ride phase, if you have a Faverniel Vanguard, so basically your turn 4 and onwards, you can bind him and discard 1 to activate Persona Ride, but for that turn, you cannot activate Persona Ride by any other effect and you cannot ride. So you do get 4 copies of him and he's a grade 3. So the grade 3 means that he's supporting the grade condition for Faverniel, and normally this deck cannot Persona Ride because you only have 1 Faverniel in the deck. But thanks to his effect, you do activate Persona Ride, and it doesn't count as riding, I believe, for like the plus 10k and the plus crit that he has. So you still get all of those buffs on top of that. So that's honestly really amazing. And we do get 4 copies of this amazing card. We have this grade 2 who says if you did not ride this turn, then for that turn he gets grade plus 2. So he's a grade 4 in the soul, which helps to reach 13 easily. So basically you have 3 grade 3s as well as him in the soul, you have 13 already. And in the soul, when your grade 3 greater Vanguard attacks, if this turn you have not ridden, then you can bind him in order to give all of your front row units plus 5k power. So this is really good. Of course, you lose the 4 grade, but you get 4 copies of him too. So this is a promo, I believe, from way back that we get now, so that's very nice. 2 copies of the Ashurda, so another grade 2 reprint from one of the older sets, and then the Gungan Ram. So this one's reprinted as a common. This was also reprinted in Festival Booster, so they can't like over reprint one card, but pretty good. It's a very sought after card that's played in a lot of different Dark States decks. Then we have Lean, who's been reprinted first time since the Jeweled starter deck last year, and 4 Dark States PGs as well, of course, which is very nice, and the Dark States OT, which we already had in common from the Jet deck, so not super new. We have our 8 criticals, 3 normal draws, 4 heals, and now the bonus card. So this one is one of the other promos the deck has. When he attacks, if you have Faverniel Vanguard, you can put one of your other rearguards to your soul, choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it. And if you have 13 or more grades combined in your soul of Dark States, then he countercharges 1. So it's easier to use the Faverniel. So unfortunately, I wish this card was included as like a 2 or a 4 of in the deck. A little bit strange that it's only as a 1 of, but I guess we'll take it. We'll take it. Then we have the Crimson Expeller. So he's also included as a reprint. And then we have the Falcate Performer. So it is a paper rare common, but again, this is a pretty expensive double rare that's used in a lot of different decks. And I think everyone's most happy about this one, Brainwash Swirler reprint in common foil. So this is, of course, I mean, common foil doesn't really mean anything because it's not a foil, but this looks incredible. Like, this is so cool to have, just like more accessibility to this card. Again, it's like a $30 starter deck and you get a card that's worth like 20 bucks. So it's pretty good, I would say. And we also get the cup. So the value in just these cards already kind of like surpasses the value of the whole deck itself. And I think if you're starting Vanguard, this deck is super good to get into the game with because it kind of is actually complete, right? You can definitely just take this deck to tournaments and expect to do relatively well. Of course, the Stride deck sets are better, and I think I'll try to do a fight video with these, kind of explaining the rules of Vanguard as we go, and maybe even tell you like some of the cards you could replace with some of these in the deck in order to make it a bit better. So definitely really good. This one might be one of my favorites, but the Orpheus one is also pretty good. So I'm not sure which one I would rank number one, but let's move on to the Orpheus one now. Also, everyone always asks me where I got this aerial playmat from in all my comments. This was sold back when Witch from Mercury's first started airing. This was just sold on like, sorry, I cut my finger while trying to open this. That's kind of hurts. But anyway, these playmats were sold essentially during when Witch from Mercury came out on, I want to say Surugaya, like just a bunch of different online websites. Like they weren't sold as playmats, that's the thing. And there's a lot of really cool merch for Witch from Mercury that I didn't know actually came out. Like there's these like college sweaters and whatnot, which are really awesome. But anyway, enough about this. This was not advertised as a playmat, it's a desk mat. So that's why I actually use it as my desk mat for my keyboard. And it's also like on my recording space, so that's kind of why it's always there. But anyway, enough of that. This is the Orpheus starter deck. So you see Orpheus Regis here, of course, at the very front with that beautiful artwork. Zaxa on the side, and then kind of the usual thing. The Orpheus close up, really good looking, by the way. And then we open it up, and I guess Orpheus Regis never got a deck box, right? So this is actually a first, and Orpheus Regis never got sleeves, or did it? Again, just gonna move the whole box aside because it's kind of taking up space here. But we have the deck here. Let me take a look at the deck box and sleeves. So deck box here looks really cool. We had an Orpheus deck box before, I'm pretty sure, and we have Zaxa, the Will Dress Season 3 artwork, of course, here on the sides, and Brancate on the top. I guess this is how the like Tomari deck box and stuff looked as well. I think that's where I recognize this from. And then the Orpheus Regis sleeves look really nice. Like these kind of remind me of like old Chaos Breaker sleeves because they had like the white border as well. So I really like when they do these like mostly red designs with a white border. I always think they look super sick. So these sleeves are probably my favorites of the ones they've released in a while for the Vanguard units. And of course they are foil too. So looks really good. I think, you know, considering a lot of these cards are already available in foil, I'll take the sleeves being foil over the cards. I feel like it's really cool. And of course, I guess because they're all uniform, it's easier to produce. I don't know. I actually don't know what goes into the costs of production for like sleeves versus cards and stuff. But anyway, this one is the most popular one, not just because Orpheus is really cool and very strong in the bonus card and this is really good, but also because of the actual extra cards we get in this one as well. So let's take a look. We have 4 Orpheus Regis, who says when you ride him, you choose a world card from your hand or drop zone and put it to your order zone, so it doesn't count as setting it for your once per turn set count. And when he attacks, if your world is Abyssal Dark Knight, count -1, discard 1. For every 2 world cards in your order zone, you play a Shadow Army token on your rearguard circle. So very cool. And of course we do get Shadow Army tokens in this deck too. So 4 copies of Orpheus. Then we have the Cubizia and the Ruchis and the Fovi as the starters. 2 copies of Nuvorea, which is the amazing set. No, 4 copies. Wow, we actually get the full playset. That's really good. This is probably, again, the best value. This is like a must-have card for Orpheus because it lets you do more multi-attacks potentially, or just fill up your board even stronger. Then we have the Kuljamid. 2 copies. There's a double rare from set 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly, but it's a defensive option, which was played. I'm not sure if it's still played to this day. I haven't played Orpheus in a while. Then we have the Guryunda. So this is one of the commons from set 9, 10? But basically this one says when he's played from hand to rearguard circle, if your world is Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you may look at the top 7, and if you do, you can choose up to 2 world orders that you find among them and discard them and then shuffle your deck. And when he attacks in the battle, if you have Abyssal Dark Knight as your world, then you can retire him in order to then choose a world card from your drop and add it to your hand. I'll explain what Abyssal Dark Knight and stuff is in a bit. We get 2 of him, but he's literally a common, so very easy to get the remaining 2 copies, definitely not an issue. And then this is the new card that they are doing as an exclusive to this deck, which is the Horaxius Dragon. So this one says when he's placed on rear, if you have an Orpheus Vanguard, you Soul Blast 1 and choose a world card from your drop that is not the same name as one that you already have in your order zone and put it into the order zone. And then if during the battle phase, this unit has been sent to the drop either from your rear or hand, and if your world is Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you may draw 1. So when you discard it for Orpheus Regis's cost, you get to basically just draw cards. So that's really, really nice. Or if you overcall it by Orphis Regis, by calling a token over him, he also refunds it, and you get 4 copies. It's very, very good. Another promo reprint, Kagula, of course. So this is the one that lets you soul charge up to 2, and you can soul blast 1 and retire it to call a Shadow Army token. So we get 2 copies of this one. I think this one has been reprinted quite a bit in English too, so definitely nice to have. And then unfortunately for this one, it's 4 of the old PG. I really like the new PG for Brankit from set 6, not so much on the set 1-1. Then we have a common not perfect guard, common overtrigger for Brankit, of course, Elder Breath, everyone's favorite. And then we have our 8 copies of the critical triggers, 3 regular draws, and 4 of the Nabidim. So I like this heal trigger, is one of my favorites from Brankit, so very cool. And this is what world cards are. So they're these order cards. That's a world here at the bottom left. So this one says you can soul blast 2 to play it, and then when you do, if you have 1 world card set, then your world is a Dark Knight, but if you have 2 or more, it's Abyssal Dark Knight, so just a state that you're in. And this one says in the order zone, when you call a Shadow Army token, then for that turn, that called unit gets plus 5k power, and it's stacked. So you have 4 of these stacked, they get plus 20k, which is pretty good. It's a very good card. This is a grade 2-1, which is soul blast 2 to play it, and when you play it, you draw 1. And then it just contributes to your world count, so we get 3 copies, and then we get 2 copies of this one, which has CB1 to play it, and then when you put it into the order zone, you get a Shadow Army token onto your field, so very nice. And these are Shadow Army tokens, so these are basically 15k vanillas, so they are 15k grade 1s that can boost, and you can also attack with them, and so of course together they make 30k columns, and you just poop them out, and then the grade 3 world order makes them stronger. So it's kind of like more of an aggro deck. And now the bonus cards, we have Arvin Robust. So this is a set 8 double rare that searches for your orders, which is very nice, and it's also 23k attacker. Then we have the Distiade, not necessarily played as much in Orphis anymore, but still a very good card to have. So it's a 15k attacker, and it keeps that 5k buff on your opponent's turn too. And at the end of the attack, you can retire 3 Shadow Army tokens in order to stand him. So he actually does more multi-attack than you would normally do. So it's very cool. But then this is very nice. Combine Rusher reprint, a set 6 triple rare that was very expensive at one point. Very good reprint that basically every time you play a set order from hand, you can come +1 to revive him from drop zone. He's a 20k attacker as a grade 2. So really, really good in Orphis as well. We love it. Bobble Mine, who says at the end of battle, he boosted if you have a card in your order zone, then you can put into Soul to countercharge 1, so he provides Soul and Counterblast. And finally, the card that everyone wants and everyone wishes to be printed in every single product, of course, Elementaria Sanctitude. So finally a second printing of this that is not just like a random promo. This was a Worlds promo. This was of course a buy a starter deck last year and get 1 copy promo. And I guess for English now it's a Shop Terrain promo in July. But this is the card that everybody wants. You want to play one of these in every single deck. It's a perfect card that if your opponent's Vanguard has a triple drive, you don't have to discard for its cost. And it's also not a normal unit, it's a blitz order. So it also gets around guard restrict of stuff like Chronojet's GB2. So it's a really, really good card. This is just these 5, honestly, just these 2 cards are already the value of this entire starter deck. So you buy 2 reprints and you get a deck for free is basically how you should see this one. Like the Orphis one is by far the best, and I think that overall it's the one that's most likely to be amazing going forward, because of course we do have Orphis support in set 12. It's actually the face of the set. Orphis masks will be, you know, the new form of Orphis, and it'll interact with both Orphis Regis as well as the Orphis from set 1, but this is the better Orphis overall, so I'm curious to see how it's going to be supported and how it's going to evolve. So these have been the 3 starter decks. Which one do you think is the best? Which one do you think you'll be picking up yourself? And of course, I really do recommend new players to get started with Vanguard with these decks as well. They're a little bit cheaper than the Stride deck sets. I do think the Stride deck sets are the best beginner product by far and away because they're actual competitive ready decks. These ones are too, it's just that the decks themselves aren't necessarily as strong, so I'll just be frank with you here. But if you are getting into Vanguard, these are a really good way to learn the game because they will teach you all about the fundamentals of Standard. And I think especially these 2 are really good pickups if you're trying to get into Vanguard, because I'd say this one's a bit more mid-rangey and this one's a bit more aggro, whereas Graham Grace will kind of teach you the fundamentals really well, but I think it does lack a bit of that kind of like flashiness of the other 2. But I think if you're getting into Vanguard, all 3 of these are really amazing, but I particularly recommend that these 2 in particular that I think are just so strong on just out of the box. But anyway, if you liked the video, please give it a like. Also, if you haven't noticed, I've been strengthening the YouTube channel membership, so I've been uploading exclusive gameplay actually, where you can watch first-person perspective fights of me playing through a deck that is not released yet in English sometimes. And so I've uploaded one playing with set 11 Eva if you want to see it from a first-person perspective, as I walk you through and commentate throughout the game as well. So if you want to become a channel member, super appreciate it. Otherwise, you can check out all my socials and stuff in the description box below. Otherwise, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.